And so the idea of communication being highly nonverbal means that you have to um, understand that you are communicating even when you don't think you're communicating. If you think you don't care about the other person or the other thing, unless you are a master liar, which very few exist, and even those, humans can sniff out a liar. Uh, uh, so vast majority of people can't manage their projection well enough to actually hide what they truly think. The other person may not know what's in your mind, but if you think that this person has wronged you, but you just kind of smile and say nothing, what happens on the other side is they'll feel something funny just happened, I don't know, and then it'll be like, I don't trust this guy. That'll be what it'll be. It'll be a gentle feeling of mistrust that develops and grows from that communication, the aspect of it that's nonverbal. It may be your tone, it may be your body posture, it may just be the energies that you put out. We know, for example, through neurofeedback that some low-level energy delivered from a device can profoundly impact the mood. We know that. We've seen that. We use that. So it kind of makes sense that people can communicate and you can just feel. So don't think for a moment that you can hide your projection. You can't. You can't. And so then what that means is basically there is authenticity when we communicate. The fact that most of our communication is nonverbal, and the fact that most people can't control their projections, that means they're authentically communicating what they feel. Now, that may be different than their intention, and that creates doubt. So when someone says one thing, does another, it creates doubt. It creates mistrust. And that's really at the root of most communication problems. So when there is no authenticity, which is simply say what you mean and mean what you say. That's authenticity. Do what you say. So when there's no authenticity, it creates doubt, mistrust, and then you enter a realm where no matter what you say, no matter how well intentioned, if it's enough doubt, enough mistrust, it is always taken the wrong way. So a person with addiction lied about the drug use or alcohol or gambling for 20 years. There's a pattern of mistrust that's built. And now, even when this person is trying to do the right thing, recovery, healthy, no one believes what you say. That's one of the number one causes of relapse, actually. It's frustrating. I'm trying to make a change. I'm trying to do all the right things. But it's frustrating because people don't trust me. So this is the consequence of communicating without authenticity. Because whether you realize it or not, some part of you is communicating what you really think, what you really mean to do, and it's not matching with what you're consciously doing. So people who are not in recovery automatically communicate in a way that's inauthentic, and they create doubt and mistrust in the people around them, and this leads to stress. And stress leads to all that stuff that we do to manage stress. I'll call it toxic stress. The kind of stress that ends your life 20 years earlier. So it all comes back to communication. And so communicating is something that most people are not taught about from a young age. And when I say taught, I mean authentically taught. So a lot of times parents say, I have a toddler who's a nephew, and he's learning. So if it's modeled for him that you say sorry, so you or he's just told say these songs like say sorry, and there's like some songs made around saying sorry, like nursery on YouTube. If that is the only way he learns about sorry, if he doesn't actually see his parents apologizing for stuff, if he doesn't actually see that manifested, communication is 99% nonverbal, and he is learning not from what you say, because that's just 1% or less, but from what you're authentically feeling. So if you're a sorry, not sorry kind of person, chances are your kids have also learned that. That's why it's so hard to apologize, is because most people who are chronically stressed have not been brought up in a culture where it's okay to say, I'm sorry I screwed up. And this is why. It's because we learn most of what we're going to learn in life emotionally in a deep programming, as we usually say, from 0 to 11. That's the time period in which we learn or not learn healthy habits of communication. And when a child learns that you say sorry, but you don't mean sorry, that comes into the core programming. And then life, it's a very legalistic society. Everyone sues these days. America it happens more. Canada, it's coming. And so people are worried about admitting fault. If I say I'm sorry, I bumped into your car, it's going to mean, my insurance is going to go up. The thing is that the root of communication is authenticity. The reason for that, and I'm repeating myself, is because you, whether you realize it or not, are always communicating your true intentions. You can't not do that. We have all sorts of meridians and energy points and chakras and things that we use unconsciously to communicate. And so if you are unaware, you're creating damage the longer for yourself. You're creating your own toxic stress. So today, I'll talk to you about some ways to communicate that are healthy. And so, but in order to sort of know that, you have to understand that this is kind of the root problem. And this is why we say in the principles, is it true? Is it kind? Because truth said in non-kindness is like that. The reason why that cuts way deeper than just lies, straight up lies. The moon is blue. We all know the moon's not blue most of the time. And so it doesn't offend anybody, right? But when you dig up someone's past and throw it in their face with an unkind purpose, it cuts deep, because it is true. And if that's ever happened to you, you need to look at the truth of that, regardless of what the intention of the person is. Triggers are in the principles, we say triggers are a signpost to where more healing is needed. So if that happens to you, then you can look at that. And so, just 1 second. And so, if you're on the receiving side of that, you have good information, but don't be on the giving side of that. You'll create a lot of doubt and mistrust. When you use someone's most vulnerable things against them, there is no deeper way to create mistrust in that person. And this is true of males and females, of everyone. When you use what is said to you in confidence and cut that person down, whether you mean to or not, you will lose confidence. And that's oftentimes at the root of why relationships fall apart. And so there is another way. So in recovery, we always say life is about, it's not enough to unlearn. So when I initially started doing trauma processing with people, I realized unlearning is trauma processing. Relearning, if it doesn't happen, if someone's learned a lot of bad ways to communicate inauthentically and they're deeply programmed, it's not enough to simply unlearn what was learned. You actually have to reprogram at the same time. It has to work simultaneously. You can't just erase the core memory and leave it like that. If you don't offer an opportunity to relearn, unlearning won't happen. So that's one of the biggest blocks. This is why when people are in recovery, all of a sudden they're thinking about new things. They're reading new books. You know a person's in good recovery when they're suddenly starting to read things about themselves. That's healthy recovery, because you can only, it's just like today, I needed to create video space to record this lecture on my phone. I had to delete something to do that, because my space is full. Every human's hard drive is quite full. Oftentimes fills, at least the emotional learning part, fills up pretty quick in life. So then you have to unlearn and relearn at the same time. It goes well together. So if you want to learn how to communicate in a healthy manner, then a healthy form of communication can be found in something we call coaching. And this is top of mind for me because me and my team are reading a book on coaching. And I think we're all finding it very, very rejuvenating, because it's really pushing. And I want to share a little bit about the principles of coaching. There's lots we can say on this. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details, at least today. But coaching begins at its heart with absolute optimism in the other person's capacity to do better, to reach their potential. That's the heart of coaching. Is if you have the absolute belief, because communication is 99% nonverbal, without absolute 100% belief in someone's capacity, you will be subconsciously sabotaging them. And in coaching, that's a problem. Because when you want to coach someone, you want them to be the best they can be. You know, if a wife doesn't like what a husband's doing, a husband can't do everything exactly like the wife, because then that's going to mean two wives. If it's a husband-wife relationship, you need uniqueness, equal but unique. And so no two humans are alike. Every person has their potential. And a human can only start going to their potential when they begin to believe in themselves that they can achieve something. And when they're really low, right, like really depressed, not working, drug addicted, or whatever problems that have impacted the function, they need people around them who will communicate their belief in them. Even though the person may not be doing very well at that given moment, a coach knows that life is like this. Sometimes up, sometimes really down. And just because you see someone here doesn't mean that's all they are. Just because you see someone here doesn't mean that's all they're capable of. A coach knows that their trajectory of life fluctuates and that what we see right now could be even better. Why? Is because I like to take things and make it into science. So we all have intense internal healing mechanisms. And so look no further than wound healing. And I think we can learn a lot from wound healing. So you have your skin and there's like a cut. And like stuff is gushing out and it's hot and it's not very nice. You have a cut, a wound. To this day, the complexity of what happens to cause that wound to heal, we can't actually recreate in a laboratory. We still can't, despite all of our advances. Because wound healing is a very complex, elegant internal design that has the capacity to remodel and change a wound so that it, most wounds, 12 months later, you can't tell they were there. Even though it looked really ugly, the scar is minimal. And oftentimes, even the scar over decades kind of goes away like you can't even tell. That's how amazing wound healing is. And so just imagine, if we have this capacity to heal physical wounds, what's our capacity to heal mental wounds? What's our capacity to heal spiritual wounds? If we have this capacity to heal physical wounds, which I think we can all agree on, we must also have some capacity to heal things inside. Evolution would not be so poor as to create organisms that have many layers of complexity but without healing mechanisms. And my experience is wound healing, whether it's physical or bio, psychological, social, spiritual, we have mechanisms to heal. It's not about can we, it's about will we. And this is where my belief, people ask me all the time, Dr. Gill, how can you work with those people? Don't they drive you crazy with their lies? I am in the business of being lied to every day, many times a day. I find it quite entertaining. I can laugh about it because I know it's not who people really are. Why it's called NAM, NAM, Northeast Addiction Mental Health Center for Holistic Recovery. NAM means identity, and I know people's identity is really, really awesome. Went up there, got too excited. But that's how awesome I think people are. Through the roof. So what we see when people are down and low is not who they are. All sorts of evidence of miracles. Our organism is a miraculous thing. People have an infinite ability to heal. So what blocks them? The same things that block a wound. So if you have dirt stuck in a wound, I think we'd all agree if there's a bunch of dirt and messy stuff in there, the wound is going to still try to heal, but it's actually going to make things worse. It's going to see that, it's going to increase the amount of water. It's going to swell, and maybe it'll even swell this shut. And now you have a problem because the pressure is going to grow. So you get a lot of pain and you get an abscess. It's not that it can't heal, it's that there's a problem, there's a block to healing. And sometimes we need help unblocking. In this case, you need a doctor who's going to cut into it, clean it out, clean that out. And then, but the wound's still gaping, it's still there. And then over time, it'll go there too. The thing is that what you need is not a doctor to like say, oh, wound, you don't know how to heal. Let me heal for you. Let me show you how it's done. No doctor can do that. Wounds need nutrition and they need wound care. They need someone to keep an eye on if there's blocks, and they need someone to unblock them. That's all the wound needs from you. It doesn't need you to recreate a magical process that to this day we can't recreate. So the process of coaching is doing the same thing with wounds that are in these categories. This is what I would call recovery coaching. Part of why NOM Academy is set up is to create training for recovery coaching. Because as soon as someone goes and gets rid of these things, washes it out, and the interesting thing is, if someone has like a wound on the back of their neck, or if someone has food on their face and they don't know, they actually don't even need you to go in there. You just show it to them. It's like, hey, you got dirt in your thing. Oh, okay. We learn how to do this. We're actually born. We know how to just move things away. Every human, once they become aware of their blocks, they become aware of where the dirt is, how it's there, the very natural response is to deal with it. And the system deals with it very, very efficiently. And so the role of a coach and the basis of recovery coaching is simply two things. It's simply two things. And those two things are awareness. You got dirt. No offense intended. I'm not saying you look ugly, you just have dirt on your face. That takes time, that takes tact, that takes trust. Because a lot of people, you say you have dirt on your face, you're saying I'm ugly. It takes trust. So if you don't have 100% belief in someone's potential, you're going to struggle to raise awareness of where the defects are. The core, once you raise awareness, the theory is they'll start fixing their defects. That's true. The second part of that is then they need to choose. They need to take responsibility. They need to want to. You're never going to get someone, if someone's not going to let you, I've had patients like this, they say, don't touch me. You're not getting near that wound. It hurts too much. You can't, you just not, I'll just stick it out. People do that in the emerge all the time. Maybe they're squeamish about blood, maybe they have a block somewhere. And let's say I tie that person down and say, no, I know what you need. All of a sudden now they're traumatized. Now they're even less likely to go to a doctor when they need help. You have not helped that person because you've taken away their ability to choose. We have to believe in people, and simply, the studies show, simply raising the awareness of someone's reality raising their awareness of their goals, raising their awareness of what the options are, raising their awareness, holding them accountable, because having a choice also means accountability, right? Then magically what happens is the same thing. Wounds have to heal. They will heal. If you can do it in a gentle way, wounds can always heal. And so I would suggest to you that if you're going to communicate, let this be the principle of your communication. And you'll find that your communications become less dramatic, they become less toxic, they become more productive and more enjoyable. When you communicate for the highest good of all. You communicate to find the win-win. Anytime, my brother, I can't remember if it was my brother, but we were selling a house at one point, or a property, and I was like, and someone told me, oh, just put this price way up here. And I thought to myself, what if some person actually just gives us that price? It's not what it's worth. We win, they lose. But that's a lose-lose. When you win at someone else's expense, you don't win. And that money will come away from you somehow. If you are not having the other person's best interests at heart, you win, you don't win. You win, they lose, you both lose. It's called delayed realization. So a lose-lose, a lose-win, that's like a martyr thing. Oh, I'll take one just for the team. But oftentimes that comes with the expectation of some kind of other reward, like a hug, a good job, something. And that's not a win for the other person, because at some point you're going to come to collect. So win-win, and everything else is a lose-lose. Coaching is a way to communicate, to achieve a win-win for the highest good of all. And if you can't do that, you're better to stay silent. So this is what the basis of the principle. If you're going to say something, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And what you'll find is that your communication strategy starts to shift into one of optimism, one that's based on healing yourself and others, and one that will ultimately lead you to a lower stress life, and so you don't need to cope with all these things. I'm an addiction doctor. I was actually just at a place today. They said to me, oh, so you must prescribe a lot of methadone. I'm like, sure, I'm a doctor. I prescribe methadone, but that's not what treating addiction's about. If your life is miserable, depressed, unhappy, you're drugging, you're drinking, you're doing stuff, medication will help make it manageable. If your lows are really low, maybe you need it, for sure. But that's not recovery in its alone. Recovery is really reevaluating what you've been programmed and changing it, unlearning and relearning. And so today we talk about communication and the principle around truth, kindness, and the necessity. Because the necessary piece comes around choice. A lot of times someone doesn't want to change. You badgering them won't make that any more likely. So we're going to talk more in the future lectures about some strategies to actually communicate and how you can actually coach someone to be in a relationship with you. So more to come. I apologize if I misspeak. Many thanks for listening, and we'll have our question and answer now. So I'm just going to end this lecture.